right, let's get started with another episode or edition of Tech on Ice. Um, so we've been talking a lot about AI, and I was going to continue that conversation. We've talked a little bit about like if you wanted to play around with testing and fine tuning models locally. We talked about Olama, but you know, I think one thing that's interesting is what if you don't want to do that? What if you just want to test models or you know you know play around in a space without your needing a GPU or without a somewhat high performant machine? How could you play around some of these models? And um just like maybe I want to know, like, hey, what model is best for this particular task. And there's a tool for that. It's been out for a bit. So that tool is called Github Models. So I think it was announced in August. It's in private, or it's in public beta, which basically means play around with it, but it's still being actively worked on to pretty heavy extent. But basically, what it is it think of it as like a place for you to play around with models and kick the tires on the experience of different models. So here, I'll give you an example. It's like you can go to the GitHub Marketplace and there's a model section, and from there there's like drop downs of like what the provider of those models are. And this is all, the models aren't, you don't have to download them or run them locally. Like these are all hosted up in GitHub somewhere for you. So you can get access to all the models from Mistral, all the models from Meta, all the models from Microsoft, like the Phi or the Phi models, access to Gemini models, I believe, and then obviously access to all the models that are available in Azure OpenAI if you have API keys. So basically, if you have API keys to most of the major model providers, you have the ability to do that. And basically what you do is you click on a model and then you go to this area they call playground, and then you have the ability to build your prompts, build your system prompts, change the temperature. We'll talk about some of these things probably in a later episode. Basically, it allows you to kick the tires on these different models, which I think is really cool, especially like if I'm building an app and maybe that app has a very specific use case, like, hey, what LLM is best suited for this particular thing? So I can, use the same prompt and send it to a bunch of different models and see what the results are. And the models that give me the results I want, maybe I'll choose. And then maybe I'll fine tune a bit more from there. And there's like an extra little layer of awesomeness too, where there's a GitHub Copilot extension where you install on your GitHub account. It's free, 100% free, and basically allows you to interface with a model that's been fine tuned to the data of GitHub models, like Inception for models, to get this sort of information. So, like, you can go to like GitHub Copilot Chat in Visual Studio or VS Code or in the browser or JetBrains or wherever, and type, at models. I don't remember the directive. I think it's models. Like, I'm building something that needs to be able to interface with natural language. What model should I use? And it'll give me a response similar to like if I was to use, this information, but it's specifically fine tuned to the information about the models, which I think is really fascinating because I think we're getting to this point now where there's so many models out there. And yes, we can, pull some down and play with them locally with Olama, which, I've talked about that in a previous video. I said that before. Go check that video out. It's pretty awesome stuff. But if I just want like a quick thing and I don't want to do all of that work to get it running locally, I can just go to GitHub Models and play around with it from there. And I think this is a game changer, like in this world. And I think what's interesting specifically about this is that the next step is like, okay, well, I want to do this like from an ID, and maybe we'll talk about that in a different episode. But I think if you're not playing around with GitHub Models, I highly recommend it. Like, it's free. There is rate limiting, so with the new free tier of GitHub Copilot, you get access to a bunch of stuff. But GitHub Models is free to an extent, right? It kind of controls how many tokens you can send and all of that, which is to be expected because you're not paying for the compute. You're kind of just having the experience. So I think it's pretty cool, and I highly recommend that if you're curious about models and how different models react to prompts, check out GitHub Models because it's, in my opinion, the quickest way to get some of this information instead of having to, dig through white papers or different people's blogs or people sitting at a cold plunge telling you what to do. So that's going to be it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you played around with GitHub Models, like comment down below, or if you didn't even know about it, I'd love to hear, what you think about it. And as always, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.